yesterday, the war in the Kenyan political scene was intensifying. This time, the members of the united opposition were taking it gloves off to attack the Ruto's camp, while Kalonzo Musyoka took it upon himself to defend the position of Winny Odinga, saying that that is a position, of course, that is very, very solid coming from that young lady, Honorable Winny Odinga, calling for inclusion within the ODM party. His counterparts, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka's counterparts, that is being Honorable Wamalwa, who is also a co-principal within the united opposition, took it upon himself to defend Honorable Kalonzo from the utterances that have been coming from the president. Now, Kalonzo treated them as a bait that President William Ruto has fallen to, but Wamalwa was treating the statements of the president as ones that are being weighed in a wrong scale, while he said that Kalonzo's track record is clear, only comparable to that of Kibaki, both of them having been in the political wilderness for 40 years before Kenyans elected President Kibaki, and Honorable Wamalwa believes the Kenyans will elect Kalonzo to become president. He compared it with President William Ruto's track record that, according to that particular co-principal of the united opposition, seemed like unfit and of course unworthy of comparing to the position, or rather the political record of Honorable Kalonzo. So where was this happening? This was taking place sometime somewhere in Kitui yesterday, attending a burial of the mother to the PA of Kalonzo Musyoka, James, who has now become a friend within the united opposition due to the relationship, of course, that has been created between the united opposition, other co-principals, and Kalonzo Musyoka, who for a long time, for a very, very long time, has been the boss of this young man who was laying his mother to rest. Now, in this particular event, a lot of political statements were made, statements that were attacking President William Ruto's camp individually, and statements that were positioning the united opposition as the camp of choice within the Kampa region. In this particular episode of the People's Mirror, we want to put those two statements before the mirror, the ones that were made by Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka and the ones that were made by Honorable Eugene Wamalwa, to just see what was going on and what has increased in the Kenyan political fight. Other than that, we'll also put a small bite of President William Ruto's statements being aimed at Ndindi Nyoro and the likes, that now he calls political conmans who are bringing political conmanship around the sale of the Safaricom and the KPC. More on that story, of course, will also follow. If this is your first time joining our channel, of course, please hit the subscribe button. That enables us to grow and also gives us an opportunity to bring for you these particular political stories as they unfold. So let's first start with the statement of Kalonzo Musyoka. Now, you see, for quite some time, Kalonzo Musyoka and President William Ruto have been on a row where President William Ruto makes statements and Kalonzo replies. Now, it has taken a different angle where President William Ruto now co-joins all the co-principals together when he starts its utterances and calls them people that do not have plans, and of course let the public answer on the part of when he wants to say that they also lack brains. Now, in this particular approach of response, Kalonzo has been single-handedly handling the president's statements when they are addressed to Kalonzo Musyoka and the united opposition. Yesterday, we saw a different trajectory. Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka took to the defense of Winny Odinga and laughed off President William Ruto, saying that President William Ruto seems to have actually fallen to the trap that they set for him. Whether this was a trap or not will come clearly from the statements of Stephen himself. And of course, it was now Eugene Wamalwa who was taking on President William Ruto's utterances with a good comparison that, of course, you will also hear from Eugene's own statements. Without further ado, let us start with the statements of Kalonzo yesterday in Kitui that now have the effect of shaping the Kenyan political future and the arrangement within the united opposition.
Thank you. Wow. You know, the comfort I have kwamba mama asikii hiyo yote, but even if she was hearing, she would have said the same. Kwa hivyo nikubali tu niseme mengine mawili, because we are here, function hii ya mama becomes a national event. Wakati ndio huu. Jamaa wakaja wakaanzisha ujenzi wa barabara Kamuongo, wakaenda Kitui, wakaenda wakaanzisha nyingine where. Nataka niulize hapa Kamuongo because wanasema wataweka lami mpaka kwa nyumba yangu. Si ndio? ukweli ni kwamba mimi niliona as a selfless leader when I was vice president. PS Kamau was in charge of roads. Akasema, Vice President, I have money for 21 kilometers. Hii barabara nataka tuanzie Sekuru, hapo Sekuru weke lami. Na kulia Kamau, hiyo ni kuniharibia sifa. Yaani watu watoke na vumbi kutoka Mwingi wakifika after Twemiwa wapate lami hapo. I told him no way. Ianze Mwingi kiteremka. Nekabika Sekuru lekabika. Na nebinda nebikie. And Governor, I'm told that you're even having a little project of your own, Mweke hiyo lami, because the time for it is now. But what William Ruto has not said, ni kwamba tulianza hii barabara kutoka Kibwezi, the same contractor, Sinohandro, ambaye nimemwona pale Mbondoni, same contractor in 2012, tukiwa na wakati huo wale viongozi wengine, na wakaja wakasimamisha after they took over from Raila and myself in 2013. In 2016 Uhuru akatuonea Ruma akaanzisha Mutomo. That's how the road got to Kitui. By now hiyo barabara ingekuwa imepita Maua, by now for sure Isiolo and linking up with Ethiopia. Tukija Mheshimiwa Eugene, umeona magari mawili napita mbio ya Miraa. Hiyo imetoka Meru. That road, if that road was done by now, ingepitia hapa kwenda Garissa. So, you have denied us our economic rights. But you are not complaining. We are not complaining. We are going to do it the right way. The right way. Elimu imekuwa imeangamia almost. Ikifika mahali useme machifu waende watafute watoto wapeleke shule kwa nguvu. This is not colonial time. Ni kwa sababu wazazi hawana pesa. Ni kwa sababu wazazi hawajui watoto waende wapi. Ile education, mwalimu huyu Shemeji alisema was Minister for Education. We were certain about what to do. University funding was deliberate. We started the Higher Education Loans Board. And I appointed the current governor of Baringo, by the way, was the first chief, Cheboy, I think Cheboy. Yeah. Cheboy was the first CEO of Higher Education Loans Board. Tukafanya mambo hayo. Education, we even had something I personally commissioned, and of course guidance wakati wa Mzee Moi, which we call ticket. Now, hii education system, walimu ukipelekea watoto, hawajui curriculum iko vipi. Wao wenyewe wanataka usaidizi. Now there's total confusion. I don't blame the Minister for Education. I blame his boss, because I may cause confusion kwa mambo yote haya. So we will be talking about education. Hatutakuwa walalamishi, tutakuwa tukiongea vile tutafanya. The first thing we shall do, we shall make sure education ya watoto wetu from the cradle, kuja nursery, which governor is trying to do, all the way to university, will be free education. Because hii pesa wamekula, hii pesa yote wamekula inatosha. Ingine wanafanya maajabu kusema mnapeleka nyinyi Singapore. Before you take people to Singapore, education is basic. You cannot take people the next step without giving them proper quality education. That will be our mission. We are not talking about united opposition. We are taking over the government from William Ruto next year. Inyo mwe tayari? Mwe tayari? Gavana ni mubiano ndo wa msimamo. Lakini chungeni. Mheshimiwa Malili, you are also there. Ito aneni. Nundo aendie wa giome hapo. Tio huo. Ha? Baba bikiwe you there to bikiezi ukone. Baito tuyemwe. Ito aneni ya mheshimiwa. Alichanganyikiwa, kila mtu anachanganyikiwa. Olo ndo malombe okwazia, no bakaze wende bende ya mongo. Uyunga matakiuma. Karatu yomba ito. Yani tafadhali ukatetema wa mayuno anena, because bado tuko na bishop hapa. Hele kutetema. Weta tameketimba wa mayo. Nyetinya ni wa mayo ini Yesu. Kwa hivyo lazima muwe sasa vai utongoi ukuoneka. andu maivinzie mama ile mateshwa na kindu kiambe tafadhali kila mundu alike imwezi yu ethebe mwana no moto zete kibande utena kibande mheshimiwa governor. Even if you're going to argue Mheshimiwa Malile and all of you, move around, register people as voters, because kura ndio kila kitu. Nilisema Ruto alisema vijana wapigwe risasi miguu. Nikasema rais wa nchi gani hii anaamrisha watoto wapigwe risasi miguu? Ukimpiga risasi mguu mtoto kama Rex Masai anakufa. Sasa sema na sisi tutampiga Mheshimiwa Bishop, tutapiga Mheshimiwa Rais risasi moja kwa ballot box ya kwenda nyumbani. One touch. Itakuwa one term and it is one term, and because he has earned only one term. Haiwezekani siasa ya uongo kila bandu Ruto hapo Kalonzo na yeye merweyo. Akometa kuota no Kalonzo. Ngwe aliyakwa no Kalonzo. Ama hiyo
very interesting. So that is Kalonzo's first take. First begin by riding on the selflessness, saying that at one point he was actually approached by the former PS at that time, PS Kamau, to actually have a 21-kilometer road be built alongside his home as the vice president. You see, this particular conversation or talk is important because the only attack or the major attack that has been coming from the ruling party's camp to Honorable Kalonzo is that he lacks strategic plans and of course strategic brains, going by the words of the president, to have built a road in his backyard. And so the president everywhere is gone, including when he was in Nyeri, asked the Nyeri residents why then would they opt for Kalonzo as an option, or even for the United Opposition as an option, if the United Opposition leadership itself lacks that particular mindset to build a road on their own backyard. Would they then bring roads to Nyeri and other places where the president has been quoting this particular statement? Now Kalonzo says that Ruto has denied them their economic right. I don't know how that has taken place, but he explains how the road came to be. This is important still on the roads part. Because sometimes back Kalonzo himself was quoted saying that while he was the vice president, he made sure that that road, whatever road that is the subject of concern, was building or connecting the country between Kenya all the way to Ethiopia. Now, after President Ruto had imputed doubt on those particular statements, you can listen to Kalonzo now saying that that road ought to have gotten to Ethiopia, but it's not gotten there. But had they been regimed, then it would have been passing through Garissa all the way to Ethiopia. So where is the road now? As it stands, the road has gotten to somewhere in Kitui after all these governments. That is 3 governments. After Kibaki's government, perhaps it got to Mwingi, where it started, where Honorable Kalonzo says that he instructed PS Kamau to push it a bit, 21 kilometers from Mwingi. Then in 2013, of course, it moved a bit. In 2016, now Kalonzo says that with the help of President Uhuru Kenyatta, it got to Kitui. Now let's get from the point he talks of with the help of President Uhuru Kenyatta. It's interesting that when Kalonzo, this is just on the side, is talking about President Uhuru Kenyatta, it's not with so much vehemence compared to how it's talking about President William Ruto. And this could show you a potentiality of course, building block beneath to have President Ruto ousted by Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka. And of course you understand that the Jubilee Party that belongs to President Uhuru Kenyatta is part and parcel of the United Opposition core principles. Now this aspect of education has been the basis of the president's campaign lately. Don't call it campaign. The basis of presidential speeches when he's speaking of the Nyota program, saying that education is key and central in the policies of the ruling party currently. But if you go to the ground on the issues that are happening on the ground, a lot of people are having a problem, not only with the model of education in Kenya, and also even with the funding model when it comes to the universities. And this whole thing is an alien issue, yet from the president's own camp, it feels like this is the best decision that has been made for the education sector. And he says number of times, or times without a number, that this is one of their plans to develop the country moving forward. Now, there's an involvement of the chiefs that Kalonzo is talking about, and I must just say categorically that when we are talking about the story of the chiefs and things like that, this is a government that has actually really put to use a lot the former administration systems. You see, with the coming of the new constitution 2010, there was even talks to scrap of the positions of the PCs and chiefs because devolution had already gotten to the people, and people could, manage themselves under their own counties without the interference of the national government. And if they wanted to involve themselves with the national government, then the members of parliaments, of course, became their link to the national government. But it seems that President William Ruto perhaps has realized that MPs do not have a direct touch with the people, or President William Ruto has his own motive of using the former administration to still entrench his own political ideologies, because in his administration, we have not only seen disease chiefs and PCs spending time in Nyota functions, we have also seen them go to State House and be awarded, what was the talk again, around 10,000 Kenyan shillings each. And almost in every activity that President William Ruto is doing, the DCs and the chiefs are involved, looking or portraying an image of going back to the colonial times. Now, Kalonzo says that it is his intention to ensure that the governors of the Ukambani counties go door to door to ensure registration of the people. Let us listen more on where he defends Winny before we deviate this particular analysis to the statements that were made by another co-principal of the United Opposition, Eugene Wamalwa.
No, Carlos. Yaani Ruto ameingia hiyo mtego.
Projects in that app. Oh, wow.
But let him relax. We mean well for this nation. Right now, munaona vile hali ya anga ilivyo. Ukame umeingia. Watu wetu wa North Eastern, tumekutana na malori, Mheshimiwa Governor, Mheshimiwa Eugene, inabeba nyasi kupelekea Tangamia zizikufe, Mandera na kwingineko. Nampongeza Mheshimiwa Rigathi because ameongea ukweli kwamba badala ya devolution it take root in the North East. Viongozi ambao wanachaguliwa kule wanakula pesa, wanaenda kuwekeza Nairobi na watu wanabaki hata bila mashule. We will be going to North East, to Mandera, to Garissa, to Wajir, tuwapelekea angalau tuambie tuko pamoja nao. Because they are part of this country. Nobody should be left behind. Kwa upande education, healthcare of course is a mess. Sha, something. Tulikuwa tuningesema sha, shi, sho, shu, shu. Hii kitu haifanyi. We had a working model which needed just simple marekebisho. Kwa hivyo watu wetu, kwanza tuko nyumbani. Mimi nitaenda safari. Na hii safari naomba tu mniombe. Yu tuibakube yu kweteka ile siukoni. Lakini tukweteka siukoni ni kwenda nizizie tina ne wandwamwe mabobwani akini. Na kebela geiki udhini. Mwe ukiona hiyo alama kienda koko yolo. Na nondo mwenda nyingine kwe kata. Alama tayari kudhawe nyiki koko yolo. So you have to be vigilant. Uchaguzi unaokuja Jumatano tutaenda kwa IEBC. Tumewapa notice. Wakili Ndengwa Jiru, just come here, we finish with you. Wakili Ndengwa Jiru has written to IEBC on several things. The right to information is a constitutional right. Tutaenda sisi zote as a united opposition. Tukaulizane, tuangaliane the new IEBC. Tuwaulize, do you want to go down the history of this nation as a commission guided by infamy, by that thieving mentality? The country has come a long way. They do not accept it. Therefore, Wakili has written the right to information. We want mtu anaitwa Maria, what's her name? The CEO, Marijan, atoke mapema. He cannot be the CEO for IBC for the next election. We also say it's mathematic. They have been quoted upande wa Venezuela na kwingineko, messing up the whole nation. as what happened in 2022. And we are going to reinvent. Tumesema pia, we must have also politics of tolerance. Kura sia Kalonzo si umekwanza luo kwa kila mtu. Momoni yuko. Kwa hivyo nasema wacheni kuchokoza mtoto wa Raila anaitwa Winny Odinga. Sina mna hiyo. Waache kumchokoza. She has a right to speak her mind. She has a right. Every Kenyan has a right. But William Ruto has realized, he thought that Luo Nyanza was going to go his way. I want to assure him, ODM will follow the majority where Kenyans want to do William Ruto one term.
Now, is this a conversation that has already been had within the ODM party? Because when it's coming from a point where Kalonzo is assuring Kenyans that, of course, the ODM party are going to join the majority and ensure that President William Ruto's presidency is one touch, then it must be coming from a point of information within the ODM party. Now, the ODM party is still in crisis, and of course, there was a tweeting that was shared by the son of late Raila Odinga on his Twitter platform yesterday, that Raila Odinga Jr., saying that the family is yet to have a family meeting on the 1st of February, but he was hoping that they could even have it sooner. Now, this is being seen as one of the steps to quell the noise, or rather the noise or the fights, the infights, that's the perfect term to use, within the family, so as to stabilize the ODM party first from the family structures. But as this is happening, you can now see that some hopefuls of the presidency in 2027, including Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, who is a hopeful from the side of the united opposition, now believes that the ODM party, when the time comes to make that particular decision, are going to side with the majority, and siding with the majority means, according to Kalonzo Musyoka, they will be in the side of the united opposition. Now, the defense of Winny coming from the united opposition before it comes from President William Ruto's camp now echoes on what Kalonzo is saying, that perhaps after the burial of the Prime Minister, Right Honorable Raila Odinga, President William Ruto perhaps thought that the ODM party will now vote as a bloc. And conversations have been had around this area where individuals were saying that even at the time before the body landed in Kenya, President William Ruto had called a meeting with certain key officials of the ODM party to discuss succession politics. So this shows you that at that time there was hope that the ODM party would vote as a bloc, but with the rise of Winny Odinga, Babu Owino, Sifuna, and all these other sections deviating from the ODM party, Kalonzo now seems more sure than President William Ruto on how the ODM party is going to vote, and in that surety he believes and he assures Kenyans that the ODM party will join their cohort. We will keep our lenses on the ODM party, of course, and our mirrors to see whether or not they are going to vote that way. But a major concern still remains to be mathematics, of course, and of course the Venezuelans that now Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka feel that she would not oversee this particular election because of their record in 2022 and their record globally. Another individual, because we had detailed this in the People's Mirror before, whose name is also not missing in the lips of this former deputy president, is Marjan. He might have forgotten his name, but this is an individual that he remembers clearly, and he says Marjan is also now not fit to oversee the election in 2022. So what are we saying? From our end here, the People's Mirror, we are portraying, or rather seeing, an image where the united opposition are going to try as much as possible to first consolidate support, including with the ODM party, because Gachagua has made statements towards wooing them. Kalonzo now makes statements towards wooing them. And then after that, they are jointly going to go back to the old narrative, of course, of coming together and ensuring that the IEBC is not fully or sufficiently composed for the election in 2027. So we're most likely going to see a united opposition that closer to the election are going to reject the composition of the IEBC like they have done before. Now, towards the end of this episode, you have heard Kalonzo is now saying that President William Ruto has now changed the talk from mganga to uchawi, that was the term that he was using for the Raila's cohort, to now Kalonzo to 40 years and so on, as a new political slogan and tactic to discredit his opponents. But they believe that they are going to ensure that next year they consolidate the support towards the President William Ruto. Let's see how that goes. Here at the People's Mirror, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure recapping that episode. Keep it tuned in for our next episode, where we bring to you the statements that were made by Ndegwa himself, and of course the statements that were made by Eugene Wamalwa as part of a single episode in this very camp where the united opposition sat together. Until our next episode.